In this video, we're going to take a look at adding fractions. Now you'll notice here that the first fraction is a mixed fraction here, while the second fraction is a proper fraction here. In order to add these two fractions, we would have to convert that first fraction into a proper or improper fraction. Then we would have to get a common denominator, and then we can finally add these two fractions. So I want you to pause the video now and go ahead and try this example. So again, convert that first fraction into an improper fraction, then obtain a common denominator or a least common denominator, then add your two fractions. So go ahead and try this example on your own. Now in order to convert this mixed fraction into an improper fraction, we would have to multiply the 6 by the 4, then add the 1, and put this all over the denominator 4. Well, the 6 times the 4 gives me 24, plus 1 all over 4 gives me 25 over 4. So really, what we're trying to do here is add the two fractions, 25 over 4 plus 7 over 12. Now, as previously stated, in order to add these two fractions, we would have to get either a common denominator or a lowest common denominator. Now, the least common denominator method would just be to find the multiples of each denominator. In this case, find the multiples of 4, and in this case, find the multiples of 12. Well, to find the multiples of 4, let's just list them out. So the fraction 25 over 4 has multiples of 4 given 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and so on and so forth. The fraction 7 over 12 has multiples of 12 such as 12, 24, 36, 48, so on and so forth. Now the least common denominator would here be the number 12. 12 here and 12 here. Well, since the least common denominator is 12, and this one fraction, 7 over 12, already has that denominator, all we have to do is convert this first fraction to have that same denominator 12, and that would be your least common denominator. Well, here, you would have to multiply that whole fraction by 3 over 3 in order to get that denominator of 12. So 25 over 4 multiplied by 3 over 3 would give me 75 over 12. Now we can easily add the two fractions. 75 over 12 plus 7 over 12 gives me an answer of 82 over 12. Now this isn't a reduced fraction because I can divide both my numerator and my denominator by the number 2 here. So if we reduce this fraction as much as possible, we would obtain 41 over 6. Another method can be applied to obtain the same answer of 41 over 6. All we would have to do is just get a common denominator from this point here as opposed to the lowest common denominator. So, how would we get a common denominator? I'm going to do this same example starting from this point here. Now we still have to convert our mixed fraction into an improper fraction, but we need a common denominator from this point here to add these two fractions. To get a common denominator as opposed to a least common denominator, all we would have to do is multiply both parts of each fraction by the denominator of the other. So for example, we would have to take 25 over 4 and multiply both parts of that fraction by the denominator of the other fraction, which is 12 over 12. Likewise, we would have to multiply the fraction 7 over 12, both parts of this fraction, by the denominator of the other fraction, which is 4 over 4. Now this first one on the left would give me 300 over 48, while the second one would give me 28 over 48. Now you'll notice that this isn't the least common denominator. However, they're both the same denominator, which makes it a common denominator. Now we can add those two fractions. So 300 over 48 plus 28 over 48 would give me 328 over 48. Now we can reduce this final fraction by dividing by 8 everywhere, and that would reduce to 41 over 6, which is the same answer that we obtained up above.